along to the session, and for all the information you provided in the sleep questionnaires and stuff. That's really helpful. My name's Sian Aldis. I'm an IBCLC lactation consultant and gentle sleep consultant. I support mums with all types of infant feeding, and certainly with all types of infant feeding, obviously when it comes in regards of sleep issues as well. So you're all on mute, mostly because if you've ever done anything by Zoom, which I guess you've been doing these meetings, you'll know if you like scratch your chair or anything, it will move to that person. So then what I'm probably going to suggest we do is that if you have like a question or something you desperately say, obviously pop yourself on mute and then speak would be great. What I'll probably do is work through the sleep questionnaires as I have them on my screen, which I believe starts with Sarah, who I'm guessing is Sarah Maston here with a tiny baby. And I think that's a really good place to start, because some of you have got much older babies, and hopefully maybe you can put it in the chat, or you can come on and just speak as well, because I think it'll be really reassuring for Sarah for a lot of what I'm going to say, and a lot of you with older babies are probably going to go, yeah, been there, and we understand that, because mother to mother support, as we know, is so key. So hopefully you can help offer some information there as well. Like I said, do feel free to use the chat in the meantime. And we'll kind of go from there. So Sarah, I'll start with you, and if you're able to take yourself off mute, that would be great. And so I've got a little one here, is 18 days. I'm guessing, have you got a boy or a girl, Sarah?
Little girl, and she's 4 weeks now.
4 weeks. Okay, what's her name?
Evie.
Evie. Oh, lovely. Oh, my first is Elliot, and he was going to be Evie if he'd have been a girl. But 12 years ago now, though. Okay, so the main sleep concern you had here was she's not sleeping in her crib. Is that still the case?
Well, we've conquered initially sleeping in the crib, but post sort of our 2-3 o'clock feed, she won't go back in it.
Okay, and that's
so I'm getting about 4 hours on my own. Okay. But then the remainder of the night is in the nook of my arm.
Okay. And just obviously you've got a few mums in the room. Just give Sarah a nod if this sounds something familiar to you. Yeah. Okay, so hopefully that's a bit reassuring, Sarah, is that Evie is doing exactly what I'd expect her to do. That doesn't mean it's necessarily easy, but it is exactly what I'd expect her to do. What kind of crib does she have? Is it like a side one, or does she go into a Moses basket? What's it like?
No, we've got a next to me crib upstairs in the bedroom.
Perfect. Okay. So yeah, so they're great because you can be close together. Firstly, Evie is doing what is totally naturally normal. Only 4 weeks ago, oh, look at her, gorgeous. 4 weeks ago, there she was in mummy's tummy, being carried all the time. Never felt cold, never felt hungry, all of those things. She still really at this stage doesn't really know that she's separate from you. Okay. So she's learning all of that, and really she's going off her basic instincts. We've all born with our kind of reptilian brain, which is a bit that keeps us safe and alive. And had Evie had been born centuries ago and you'd have laid her down somewhere on her own, she'd have probably got eaten by something. Okay.
True.
So a lot of what she's doing is kind of going, hello, I'm on my own. This isn't safe. I need to call my caregiver so that they, connect with me and that I know I'm safe. So what she's doing is very, very normal. One of the things that you're in a great position to do at such an early age is to start bringing in additional things that can help her settle. Okay. So we're going to move on to things like feeding off sleep. I know there's been some really quite sort of in-depth questions around that, and we will talk about that. Firstly, how is Evie fed?
Breast.
Okay, so you try to stop a breastfed baby falling asleep on the boob. It's not going to happen.
Doesn't happen.
Right? No, absolutely. And you'll read loads of stuff, I want to say rubbish, about babies shouldn't be fed to sleep. It's absolutely rubbish. It is a fantastic tool with your breasts and a great way to get your baby off to sleep, okay? But one can be really helpful at an early age is to bring in some additional cues for her too as she's feeding off to sleep. So it might be that you maybe stroke her face or pat her bottom, depending what it is that Evie likes. And this is something that I think it's a great place to start with Sarah, because those of you who are a bit further on in your journey, this is something that I would suggest that we all start working on, ready for where we meet again in 4 weeks' time. Or I think it's actually only 2 weeks' time, isn't it, how it works out, Robin? I can't remember, sorry. But it's about adding in some additional cues, because what your babies do, their little brains are perfect little blank canvases for learning. And when they start to do something, they're building up connections in their brain every single time you're doing something, okay? And so every time you feed your baby and that's how they fall asleep, they're just getting a really strong neural pathway to that's my signal to fall asleep. Very, very normal, very natural, and it's absolutely fine to do it. It can, however, be helpful for you to build on that and to build additional cues, okay? So it's no different to us as adults. We've all got to have our own individual cues to falling asleep. Mine is earplugs, okay? I always put earplugs in to go to bed, mostly because my husband snores. But for me, it's a really strong cue. So I put them in, I fall asleep. So if I want to go for a nap in the day, for example, which I would always encourage every mother to try and get very good at napping in the day, it'll serve you well for the next 18 years. You know, I put them in and I fall asleep, and that's just a really strong neural pathway. Now, if somebody took my earplugs away from me tonight, I would find it so hard to fall asleep. But, and like I said, this is going for everybody in the room, like, you know, with pretty much everything everybody said in their questionnaire. If I started to put my earplugs in at night, then started to have a scent in the room, the same pillow, for example, every night, and the same piece of music every night, you can then see I'm building up my neural pathways to falling asleep. And then you're in a better place to maybe remove the one that you don't want so much, or you don't want to have to rely on so much, okay? So, for example, what I would say firstly again is Evie is doing everything very, very normal, okay? There's nothing, and I will talk to you about some things you can help to try it, and I'm sure other people have got other suggestions as well, having been there yourselves, other mums. But however, by building these things up really early on with Evie, you're going to be in a great position like several months in where they're so strongly associated with sleep, okay? So for example, when you're feeding her, you could, and this is going to be dependent on your baby, all babies are different. She might like to have a little pat on the bottom. Or for example, my youngest, she's 4 months, she likes to have a face stroked. Now some babies hate that, they're like, oh, get off, you know. So you've got to work out what it is for your individual baby, which is why I don't offer a one size fits all, this is what your baby needs, because firstly, I've never met your baby, and you know, Sarah, what your baby is going to be different to what Robin's baby needs, to what Becky's baby needs. You're all going to have different things. So that's where you come in as the mum. Really,
it would appear your dulcet tones are doing the trick. Can you just,
I mean, I'll just come in every night.
Yeah, come sit on the end of bed at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Okay. So you might want to think about a touch. The next thing I often say is a sound, okay? So shushing tends to be the one that we do because everybody can do it, all right? So when maybe you're in a position where you want someone else to be able to get your little one to sleep, if they know that they can pat their bum, give them maybe, you know, a little cuddle and a shush, and that's going to help. And a transitional object is really helpful as well. Now, most of us end up either getting gifted or buying these great, big, beautiful muslins. Do you know what I mean? I'm sure a few of you have got them, and they're gorgeous, and so gorgeous. You don't want to clear your baby sick up with them, but they make a really lovely blanket or something to like tuck in between you and when you're feeding your baby. And that's whether you're breast or bottle feeding, because bottle feeding babies will often fall asleep there as well because they're suckling. Tuck it in between you both, encourage your baby to touch it, it'll start smelling of you both, and that's a great transitional object. And then when you want to be able to put your baby down, so I know some of you have said, you know, how do I get them to nap, how do I get them to nap longer, that kind of thing. You've got various sleep associations to help with settling your baby down. You've then got, you know, you're coming away from the breast maybe, or wherever they've fallen asleep, but you can shush, you can pat, you can bring in the transitional object, okay? So you're building up those cues. So that's a really great thing that you can start doing. In terms of with a tiny baby, Sarah, Evie currently won't be making her own melatonin, and that's the hormone that we need to fall asleep at night that makes us all sleepy at that time of day when it gets dark. So really at her age, I'd be saying 12 hours of light and 12 hours of dark or dim light. So when you're doing your night feeds, just try and keep it a bit dimmer, a bit quieter, making sure, you know, it's not party time at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm sure you're doing all those things. But just to reassure you that 4 weeks in, it's tough, it's hard, and it's really tiring. Their tummies are very tiny still. She's still regulating your supply and building all that up. So we expect to see lots and lots of feeds. It sounds to me like you're doing a perfect job, a great job. It's also absolutely fine to co-sleep with your baby. And when a baby's fully breastfed and you can do it safely, and I know someone's asked in here about co-sleeping safely, so I'll talk about that now. Sorry, I've got these printed off. Who is it who asked about co-sleeping safely? I don't know. It's someone who's in here now, but anyway, someone had, and this is being recorded, so hopefully they'll see it. So when you're co-sleeping safely, you want baby on a sleep surface next to you. Please never fall asleep with your baby on the sofa or the armchair. That is the most dangerous place to sleep with your baby. And when you hear about, you know, the tragedies that happen often, what isn't shared with us on the media, etc., is that it is babies who have fallen asleep on the sofas. So that's number one. If you've had any alcohol, please don't sleep with your baby if you've had that recently. Anything that's going to make you more drowsy, any medication that you're on that's making you particularly tired. I know you're tired because you're a mum, all of you, but I mean any particular medication. If anybody smokes in the room, you know, if either of you and your partner smoke, please don't bring baby into bed with you, because that can heighten your risks as well. And really, it's just making sure you haven't got things like your pillows near them and your duvets, etc., and have them laying on the side of the breastfeeding parent as well, okay, not in between you and a partner. That's really key. So it is a really safe way to do it, Sarah. And what I would say as well is that the majority of parents co-sleep even if they never plan to co-sleep, okay. Swaddling can be great for tiny babies because it puts them back where they've come from. They're kind of used to feeling held and stuff, so that might be something that Evie enjoys. Again, that's very individual for different babies. One of the things you can try is to feed her and just scoot her along, okay? I'm sure you might have tried a lot of these tricks, but often what happens is we kind of do that to babies and then they go like that and they wake up, okay? So you want to make sure she's in a nice sleep, maybe adding in those additional sleep cues, the shushing, the patting, and then maybe just sliding her along. Or it might be, and I often do this with my little one now because I just can't bother to move her, is that she stays where she is and I just roll further along the bed. If I feel like I need a bit of space, okay, if you feel that that is a bit much and you're not enjoying that so much. So that could be another way to do it, is you don't move her, but you roll away from her, okay. I hope that gives you a couple of tips to try.
Yeah, no, that's perfect.
Yeah, and also some reassurance as well that, you know, you're in the thick of it, but it gets a lot easier, all right, I promise you that much, and you're doing a fantastic job, okay. 4 weeks in is tough. So the next person that comes up on hang on a minute, on my screen here is Emma. Is Emma here today? Emma, hi Emma. Emma, so your little one is 6 months?
Yes. Sorry.
And what's your little one called?
Bonnie.
Bonnie. Oh, sweet. I love that. That's so cute. Oh my God, that's gorgeous. Okay, won't sleep on her own. Keeps waking up several times, not always for the breast, but for comfort. And it's like she's having nightmares. So when you say she won't sleep on her own, can you just tell me what that looks like?
So when she basically, for about 8 weeks before she hit the 4-month sleep regression, I know it's probably a fluke, but she would sleep 6 hours in the next to me, like a bulk, 6 till 12 or 7 till 1.
Yeah.
Then she'd feed, go back to sleep for 4 hours, feed, go back to sleep 3 hours. 4-month sleep regression hit, it all just went a bit out the window, and she'd only then co-sleep with me. We co-slept as a newborn, yeah, and sometimes did. But just recently we had 2 days, 2 nights where she was literally up every hour for about 6 hours. Won't sleep in the next to me, will only sleep like an hour. So I've got your gentle sleep course, and I've read about the 45-50 minute sleep cycle. And then just recently as well, like last night, sure, like every night about 3, half 3, be awake for an hour, hour and a half, completely awake, and just then won't sleep.
Right.
And it's, I don't mind co-sleeping. It's hard to co-sleep safely because she won't sleep on her back. She'll only sleep on her side, nestled into me. Yeah. She like has to always have her face like smothered, even in her car seat. She puts her face in the headrest. She's a very smother baby.
Okay. Try not to worry too much about that now, because Bonnie's going to be an age that she can pull herself off and move herself around as well. So that's going to be a bit easier for her. So often they'll move onto their side, but they've certainly got enough. And some newborns actually even do have enough tone, like enough muscle tone to move themselves back again. Okay, so that would be, try not to worry too much about that. But yeah, but you've got very unsettled nights, haven't you?
Yeah, it's weird. We went from being absolutely incredible to who knows what night it's going to be. And she's so good in the day. Like her day naps are generally always the same. We go for walks every day, if not 3 times a day. Yeah. The only place she'll sleep is in the sling in the daytime.
Okay. So adding in those additional sleep cues is something that I would suggest for you also, and you'll know if you've got the sleep course anyway that we discussed that quite a lot, and then moving, if you want to be able to move on from that, how to do that. But adding in the additional sleep cues will, I think, be helpful, because during the day, if it's always being carried and then at night it's always being held, that's just what she's learned, is how she falls asleep. And again, I would say there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, there's nothing wrong with what you're doing at all. It's a really lovely, nurturing way to parent. However, it is also okay to say, I'm kind of a bit touched out and maybe I need a bit of and also if you're getting very frequent wake ups. Bonnie recently started weaning.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, that's when it kind of went even worse.
Okay, yeah. I was then going to say, because it's a massive developmental leap, and often a lot of people think, oh, we'll start stuffing them full of food and they'll sleep better. But actually what we find is it tends to go the other way, because it's a huge change in development. Has she got any teeth yet, or can you see any signs?
Yeah, 2 bottom teeth and 2 front teeth are trying.
Oh, okay, right. Okay, well, that's going to explain some of your night wakings as well. Okay. And also breastfeeding, the breast milk actually has got pain relieving qualities to it. So that's often why they'll feed. So I wouldn't be surprised if you're just kind of in a bit of a difficult stage, particularly because you've got a lot going on with that. She looks a very happy, active baby there. And they do have huge periods of development, not in the least with how they're eating, but with everything else. And typically when a baby is developing a lot, then yeah, sleep becomes a collateral damage, as you know. So just tell me a little bit about what her naps are like at the moment.
What was that, sorry?
What are her naps like at the moment? You said
her naps are pretty good. She'll I mean, she always has only normally slept half an hour to an hour.
Yeah.
And she'll have one normally 9 till 10, 12 till 1, and then 3 till 4, with variant dependent, you know, half an hour or so sometimes. Yeah. If she's woken later in the mornings.
Okay. So I can't remember if it's in the sleep course or not. I need to revisit it. I might have done it when I was very tired and pregnant, I think. I'm trying to think, did I discuss zones of regulation in there? Have you seen that at all?
Yeah, so when they get sort of too then tired and things.
Yeah, because that's really important to note with them. What I would say to everybody watching this is that it sounds like Bonnie is in the midst of a really big developmental time, and sleep can be really, really hard. With a baby that is wanting to be very, very close, and that's how she always sleeps, and you're ready to move away from that, that's where, again, adding an additional sleep cues is going to be really helpful for you. So I would suggest you start doing that, and you would do it at every sleep time. Okay, so every nap time and every time you're getting her off to sleep, so that you're building them up. So when she's in that sling, get in like a little, like say, transitional object, if it's a muslin or a toy or something like that. Maybe a sleepy phrase as well, because she's that kind of age where you say that. So something like, sleepy time now, or something that really signals to her, okay, we're having naps, but gives you a way that you can gently move away from the contact sleep all of the time to be able to settle her in other ways. What's happening a bit here, it sounds like, is that Evie is getting very used to settling in the same way every time she falls asleep. And then when she wakes up, she is obviously needing that same thing to fall asleep, because there isn't the extra stuff there. So it is going to be a very gentle transition, I think, from that. And you may find that starts with moving on maybe from the sling naps to see if she can fall asleep another way, perhaps in a pushchair or something, and gradually move away from that. I just mentioned about the zones of regulation, and what I would say with, regardless of your age of baby, this is going to be something I think that I hope you find helpful and will stick with you for parenting for life. I definitely find it works for my 4-month-old, my 3-year-old, my 9-year-old, and my 12-year-old. Okay, and zones of regulation are often linked, and I always explain this, if you were to Google them or something, they're often linked to like autism, but or that's how they're often used. But I'm not suggesting your child is autistic. Okay, it's just a really helpful way of managing kind of overtiredness. You'll hear a lot about overtiredness, which can definitely become an issue, with this kind of age baby. They're so busy and interested in everything. And it's just spotting, when is your baby good to go and when are they not good to go, basically. When are your babies in their green zone? And what do they show you to show that they're in their green zone? They're good to go. They are happy to play, happy to eat, to converse, and they're happy, basically. What do they show you? Are they a smiley baby? Are they really engaged? Are they really inquisitive? What is it that they do? And then I want you to think about, what does your baby do in their blue zone? And their blue zone is their tired zone. They are ready to fall asleep. It's that cozy feeling of like, I am just ready to fall asleep and fall asleep quite nicely. And that's really important for babies. When babies fall asleep quite gently in this blue zone, is that they get that feeling of gently falling asleep. And Emma mentioned about this 4-month sleep regression. Everybody worries about this. It's actually a real progression, okay, for your baby. It means that their sleep cycles are changing. So Sarah's little one at the moment, Evie, is going to be going through REM sleep to deep sleep to REM sleep to deep sleep, because that's what newborns do. Okay. REM sleep is the kind of active sleep where they're learning, and you can imagine a newborn is just, you know, being flooded with stuff and constantly learning. It's where they kind of move their short-term memory to long-term memory. When your baby turns 4 months, they suddenly, very quite quickly, adapt their sleep cycles to something a lot more mature, similar to ours. It's shorter, but they will go through periods of light sleep to deep sleep to REM sleep and back round. Now, for a baby that's crashing into sleep because they're always really tired, what happens is they miss the light sleep phase of sleep. They crash into deep sleep. But when they go around that cycle again and they hit the light sleep, for you and I, that would be when we would maybe shovel over in our covers, maybe have a wee, maybe, you know, how many of us have a drink by the bed? So none of us sleep through the night in this light, deep sleep. But for a baby who isn't used to that feeling of falling asleep and what that light sleep feels like, they wake. That's when they wake consistently in their sleep cycles, okay, which is where, again, these additional sleep cues can help, because your baby has perhaps got something then with them, like I say, like the transitional object or the shushing or something that you can do. A scent is a really lovely one to do as well. So they have these signals that help them. And someone's mentioned here how to get a baby to kind of stitch sleep cycles. This is what we look at, okay, is what can you do as they're gently falling asleep that they can then be, you know, replicated throughout the night. But not alone, they need to gently fall asleep and know what that feeling feels like. So for you and I, that's that kind of when you're drifting off and it feels quite nice. If you've got any worries, that's when that's going to come in. And that's when someone who is feeling very anxious might wake in the night also during those sleep cycles and be awake worrying, okay? But when your baby's body is used to feeling like that, then we can help that throughout the sleep cycles throughout the night, okay, because they're going to be less likely to wake over and over again. So for Emma, in your situation, I would definitely be making sure the naps are ideal. So it sounds like she's getting, did you say she's having like an hour, didn't you? So about 3 hours over the day. It might be what you want to do is, I would, with a baby of 6 months, I'd be looking at getting them off to sleep within 2 hours of being awake and making that quite a short nap. So
she does, yeah.
Perfect. And yeah, just making sure really, what's she like before she falls asleep at bedtime? Is she like chilled, or is she?
Yeah, so all her naps she's generally settled, because I'll notice about after an hour and a half she's starting to get a bit grizzly, so that's when I'll sign off a boob. Sometimes she wants boob after that, and as partial course I try the 15. Sometimes I'll put her in the sling, and sort of 10-15 minutes later, or 20 minutes, she's still not sleeping, so I think she's not ready, so then get her out, try boob, but generally it's sort of every 2 hours. And I forgot to say, so mums feel reassured, every time we've had an awful night, she's either had teeth pop through the next day, or she's done something new, like she's suddenly now sitting on her own, she's babbling more, so they're positive wake ups, as much as it's hard work,
Yeah, and it is so much. This is about reassurance of like what's normal, and we hear so much rubbish about babies should be sleeping through the night at 6 months, and I would say that's actually pretty rare, because clearly what's happening now, Bonnie's going through huge developmental leaps, okay. But I was saying about these zones, we talked about like that blue zone, when is your baby good to go to sleep, and what is it that they show you that they do? So some babies, it can be so subtle, and often it will start with something really small, like for example, like one of my children just kind of like start staring into the distance, that thing where you're like, you're zoned out, and that will be a sign there. Sorry, the chat just popped up. So that will be a sign that she's starting to get tired. Other children will get really excitable, particularly very happy children. We'll find they'll start to get a bit like, woo, 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 and this sort of starts happening. And what can be very tempting there is to be like, oh, let's entertain you more. And then what we'll do is we just need them to like cycle of exciting them even more. And it's very helpful for you to be able to spot early on, what is your baby showing you when they're starting to get tired? And that's the blue zone. They're good to go. You're going to get a nap and sleep happening quite well, and they're going to gently fall asleep, okay? And sleep latency, how long it takes to fall asleep, ideal is about 15 to 20 minutes. It's often longer than what we realise. The yellow zone for your babies, if for you and I, as adults, it'd probably be like we should have gone to bed about half an hour ago. For your baby, that's when they start getting a bit crotchety, okay? And what do they show you at that point? What is it that they start doing? That's maybe when you're starting to see like the eyes are rubbing, or they might be pulling on their ear, that kind of stuff. At that point, they've kind of gone a little bit too far the other way. And that's when they start to release cortisol and adrenaline, and that can have a major impact on night wakings as well. So by catching your baby before that happens is ideal. The yellow zone, this dysregulation basically is what's happening, can happen for other reasons as well. They might just want to change the scenery. They might want to go outside. They might be a bit bored with the thing that, you know, they're playing with. And this is where it's really key for you as parents to watch your children and spot those signs of your baby and your child dysregulating, and seeing what is it they do, what do they show me when they're fed up with that toy, or actually when they're tired. And you will find that you know, for any other children as well, it will be different. So I think I've got 4 kids, they all present differently. Your red zone is when they've absolutely had it, okay? And we've all reached that stage, haven't we, with our children? You think, oh dear Lord, we should have gone to bed about 4 hours ago. For you and I, it'd be like when we get really cross and really angry and we totally dysregulate or whatever, we're so tired, you know? And it's spotting, what does your child do when they're in that? Normally it's going to be pretty full on, but that's what we're looking at, is trying to spot them before they get to that point. But also knowing for your child, how do you bring them back? Okay, so if they've got to their red zone or their yellow zone, dysregulating because they're tired, you need to bring them back to that blue zone. And what does your baby need for that? Do they need cuddling, rocking, shushing, soothing, feeding? Okay, what works for your baby? Or if they're just dysregulating because they're bored, or they don't like the person they've just seen, or something's going on they don't like, what can you do to bring them back to the green zone, their good to go zone? How can you make them relax and things like that? And again, it might be some of the same stuff. A lot of young babies, it's going to be things like feeding them. They're going to want to come back into mum to do that. But anyway, by spotting these things, we can start to spot signs of getting a bit overtired. Babies have naps just to kind of manage their sleep during the day, their sleep pressure, which is kind of the drive to fall asleep. And then babies, they increase their sleep pressure quicker than we do as adults. So that's why they need naps throughout the day. I've got these gorgeous little faces looking at me. It's very distracting. Like, oh, hello. Yeah, so that's why they need more naps basically. And your babies are all going to have, you know, different sleep needs and different napping needs. By the time baby's kind of Bonnie's age and they're weaning, and if they're weaning well, that's when I expect to start to see more of a pattern of sleep. So again, I'm not someone who's going to say baby 6 months, they should be doing this and this. But that's when I would expect to start to see more regular naps occurring. So people who are on the call who've got like 4 or 5 months old babies and naps are a little bit all over the place, totally normal. That's what I would expect to see. Okay. So Emma, I'm afraid I would love to wave a magic wand and say it's going to fix it for you. But what I would say is just managing that dysregulation, seeing what's going in, but you've got teeth going on, new foods going in. The other thing just to be aware of is, and you said it kind of got worse in as well, just have a little look what's going on with guts and things like that. If she's presenting with any symptoms, I don't know if that's anything that has been an issue with Bonnie at all anyway throughout. But if she has got a very sensitive gut, you might want to have a little look at what she's eating and if you can see any correlation, okay, because obviously she's newly weaning, okay.
Thank you.
Hopefully building up those sleep cues is going to be helpful for her as well.
Yeah, and I think, like you say, finding something she likes, because we've tried the scent thing of, you know, something with my scent, a comforter, and yeah, she's not really interested in any of them.
Yeah, well, a lot of mums will say it to me. They'll say, well, they're not really attached to anything. And I'm like, no, they're not. You need to attach it to them. Like, you know, you kind of, you bring it in all of the time, and eventually they'll just, you know, all of a sudden that becomes kind of their thing. Anything that you do and changing up as well, I always suggest a minimum of 2 weeks, okay, and especially with the babies and cutting teeth and things like that. In the meantime, Emma, it's about how do you get support around you so that you can manage this very tiring period. So I would say, rather than perhaps going out for a walk every time she needs a nap, why don't you lay with her and nap with her in the bed as you would at night time, so you can catch up on some sleep during the day, okay?
Brilliant. Thank you, cheers for that. It's nice to know it's normal.
100%. I didn't read anything in any of these questionnaires and think, oh, there's something wrong there. I very rarely do. They're normally very, very normal. I'm going to try and get through as many people as I can. Obviously, we've only got limited time, but hopefully a lot of what we're talking about, the idea is that it's going to be helpful, hopefully, for a lot of your situations. I'm going to kind of speak to you all. So Corinne, is Corinne here? She is, isn't she? Hi, Corinne. Hi. So your little one's 5 months. So we've got here nighttime settling and self-soothing. Your baby has to be worn or held during the day to sleep, and night times like several times, sometimes just be held. So not dissimilar to what we've just discussed with Bonnie, actually. Hi, what's your little one called?
Theodore.
Theodore. Hi, Theodore. Well, you're getting another very excitable, very happy baby. Okay, so we've just talked about kind of some of that zones of regulation, looking over tiredness. Does any of that link to anything that's going on?
Yeah, to be honest, we've had a bit of a breakthrough this week of all the things that you've talked about. We've been doing since like 3 months, but it's suddenly clicked this week.
Okay.
So we think, hopefully, but it's obviously just as he grows now, like adapting it as he gets a bit bigger and yeah.
And that's the thing about, and that's why a lot of what I do is to try and kind of teach you to understand what's happening, so you can then go back to your baby. Because if not, you don't want to have to be like, oh, I need to buy a sleep program at 3 months, another one at 5 months, another one at 7 months, and all that. That's well, to me, that's not really ideal. It's a bit like me saying, well, I'm this age and I'm a childbearing age woman, I need this much sleep per night, therefore so must all of you. It wouldn't work, would it? Or I like to go to bed at 10, so must you, or whatever. Actually, quite frankly, I like to go to bed about 6 o'clock in the evening. But you know what I'm trying to say, it's not relevant. So that's why, to me, it makes a lot more sense for you to understand a bit about the biology of it. So for example, when Theodore is starting to show you that actually that's not the right nap time for him, that you can then adjust it as his sleep need changes as he gets a bit older. And obviously it's not going to be very long before you're introducing things like weaning again. But as Corinne's just said, she's been doing those things since about 3 months, and she's now had a bit of a breakthrough, and that's kind of happening. And that's again what I would expect. It takes time to build up these associations, which is why I was like, Sarah's in a good place because she can start doing that straight away. Okay. So to give you some idea again, my youngest is now 4 months, so I've been introducing these sleep cues from quite probably about a similar age to where you are now, Sarah. And I now know that with her, if she's starting to get tired, usually I will feed her to make sure she's not hungry. And then I'll give her a little shush, a little cuddle, give her a little blanket she has, straight on her nose. And then she'll either sleep with me, on me sometimes she'll go in the pushchair and do that. Sometimes it will be in the car seat because we've got to get on and do something. But it's that signal that it's nap time, okay? And it doesn't need to be really, really long and drawn out as well. So I meet a lot of parents recently, actually, with babies similar age to Theodore, where they were having a great big long nap routine. And the lights were down and the baby was in a sleep bag and all this stuff was happening. And they were just spending all day trying to get this baby off to sleep. And actually, look at Theodore now, he's a busy baby. He wants to see the world, he wants to do stuff. So with a baby like this, when you're having, that's great to have those things and look at when nap times are happening. But don't always look at it in terms of overtiredness, look at it in dysregulation as well. What else do they need? Get them outside. That broad spectrum daylight makes a massive difference. I know that's been hard over the last couple of months, but where you can, sit with them in the grass, get them to touch the grass, get them to feel different things on their feet. All that sensory stuff is great for them. But at this age, I wouldn't be suggesting great big long nap routines or bedtime routines as such. So tell us a little bit, how have you moved on? Because I think that might be helpful for Emma. How have you moved on from always having to be worn to sleep or held to sleep? What is happening now for you, Corinne?
So we were co-sleeping, and it was getting to the point that he was waking every hour and I was just exhausted. I couldn't cope no more. So we took the next to me away and put a cot in the corner of the room so that he couldn't smell me as much. He had a t-shirt of mine in with him, as well as like a comforter, and we just like persisted. Like we just kept at it with the routine. Like every night he'd get in his sleeping bag with a story and a feed, and he'd go off, and like eventually it's just clicked that this is the place I sleep.
Yeah. And do you settle him back into that sleep space every time as well when he wakes in the night? Yeah. So that can be a big thing as well, is by doing that. And what I would say as well, Emma, with this, you do have to be in the right position to do it, because I don't know how you found it, Corinne, but typically when you first start something like this, you're kind of getting less sleep.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
Yeah, because you're making changes, okay? And I think that's the thing as well. We have to be really realistic. If you want to make changes to something like that, and with the younger babies, for example, Sarah, and please carry on with what you're doing. We are talking several months on and in a different position, and you may find that with the additional stuff we've discussed that you don't have to make any changes at any point, and no one has to either. I just want to make that really, really clear. It's fine to co-sleep with your baby all the way, but it's also fine to want a bit more space. But I always say to people, if you're going to make those changes, you can do it responsively. You don't have to leave them crying. You can do it so they can kind of do it nice and gently. But it is about knowing that the reason you'll probably bring them back into bed and feed them off to sleep is because it's you know, it's the quickest way. And that's why you've been doing it, and that's fine. But if you want to make changes initially, you're probably going to find it harder because babies are getting used to something different. But with something like that, you can be really responsive to a child. You do not have to shut the door on them and leave them to cry. You can just change it up. You can do it gradually with what we call gentle behaviour modification, which is with the additional sleep cues and very gradually moving on from it. If you're in a real sleep crisis, then there are things we can do to move on from it more quickly. I usually tend to involve partners, especially if you are a breastfeeding parent, because it's very hard to deny boobs. And it's also really normal for 5-month-old babies to wake up, but equally waking every hour in the night is exhausting. So I'm glad to hear it's a bit easier for you. Hayley, are you here today? No, I don't think Hayley's here today. I'm just going to see if I can try and make sure we've spoken. Alyssa? Yes, Alyssa, you're here. 7 months. Okay. So you're not expecting baby to sleep through the night, exclusively breastfed, but he wants to be close to me all night, rolls from his side, cot to be right next to me. Yeah, so very similar then to hopefully, Alyssa, a lot of what we've spoken about is kind of, yeah, speaking to you as well.
It's not touching though, which is really horrible. So like I've got a whole cot bed sidecar next to me, so he's got like a lot of space. Yeah. But you see him like a meerkat, he sleeps with front, he looks at me and he just rolls and rolls and rolls, and he actually pinches my boob. And I've got bruises all over me. It's horrendous.
That's really, really hard, Alyssa. You're doing an amazing job to keep and to keep being responsive to your little one. What I would probably say is, has he got any other kind of like a teddy or a blanket or anything like that you've introduced?
We've tried comforters, but maybe I've not tried it long enough, because I think I've tried them for about a month when he was younger, but I sort of get a bit confused about what you're allowed in the cot and what you're not allowed. So I've been a bit scared almost to put a muslin in there, because I was like, is that allowed? Is that dangerous? But then actually hearing about it, I think I'll try that again, because we've tried with you know, the comforter toys, and he just sees it as a toy, so he sits there playing with it like so maybe muslin would work.
Yeah, well, the thing was, he sounds like a very tactile little boy. Yeah, if he wants to reach out and touch you and he wants that skin, you know, and that whatever, he sounds very tactile, and some people like that, they want that, you know. So actually giving him something to touch sounds like for him that might be really helpful. When he's then doing that on you, you can put that, you know, rather than just kind of going ow and getting off, you can replace that with something else. I've seen that work really well. I had a mum who was, her little one would feed, and this hand would come around here and pinch her side.
Yeah,
actually wanted to go to, yeah. So
yeah.
again, a really tactile child. So she would bring something in here and get the baby used to touching something else, and then you're in a great position, because then that thing can go with them. You know, whereas your skin can't. Now with a muslin, what I quite like doing, and that's why I do like doing it with a big muslin or something like that, is firstly because they're easily replaceable. As somebody whose child has lost lots of bunnies, I can tell you it's extremely heartbreaking. Not in the least when she then drew her own bunny and went to bed with one that she born. Yeah, so whatever you get, don't get something like, you know, Great Aunt Doris bought for the christening or something you can never replace, all right? Get something that you can have spares of. Anyway, like I said, muslin can be easily replaced. But you can then actually use it as a blanket, you know, so you could have it, let's say your little one's a blanket or a sleeping bag or something, you can then have it over them as a blanket, but they can still feel it. Do you know what I mean? You can have like a little kind of slightly loose bit that's not tight, and they can feel it, they can touch it and what have you. And it's great because it's just so movable, isn't it? If you need a blanket or something, and everybody, a lot of people quite like that feeling, don't they, of like tucking up underneath something. So my 3-year-old, she has one, and she'll bring it over herself and like tuck herself right into it and fall asleep on the sofa with it. So there's lots of things that you can try like that. I would definitely do that if you're getting that. And then hopefully he won't need to come so close to you to, you know, on your skin off to do it as well, because that's really, really hard. You want to know about normal nap patterns for that age as well. I would suggest 3 naps a day, really, at his age. And again, has he taken quite well to solids?
Yeah, so we were weaning early because he's got allergies. So he's been weaning since, I think we started at 4.5 months. So he's quite far on that journey because he started so early.
Okay, and you're managing the allergies okay, are you?
Yeah, he's now completed the egg ladder, which is really good. So we're starting the soy ladder this week. So that's positive.
Great. Okay, that's great, because babies with allergies, and that's why I did mention that as well, didn't I, about Bonnie, didn't I, to be aware of that, is that during the day we release something called cortisol. It's what keeps us going, gets us up during the day, gets a really bad rap. Cortisol is known as a stress hormone, but it also is useful. That's what we are all surviving on right now as tired parents. It's keeping us going. But it also acts as a bit of an antihistamine, okay? So a baby that's going to have allergies and stuff, when the cortisol goes down at night, which is when the melatonin rises, which your baby starts to make, we don't know exactly, but we're going to guess around somewhere between kind of 2 to 3 months. Because the cortisol then goes down, the antihistamine qualities go. So obviously a baby with allergies is then obviously usually more restless at night as well. So just be aware of that. I generally also suggest when it comes to napping and sleep, any baby that you've got concerns around allergies with, don't give them that for whatever it is for lunch or whatever just before they're about to have a long nap, because you want to be able to look for those signs. So it might be more useful to like try at breakfast, or maybe even if, like, let's say you have quite an early dinner and then you've got a good hour or so before they go down to bed, so you can look for any things. So at that age, I would be looking at 3 naps a day. It is a great age to start having a bit more of a pattern, rather than just kind of a bit of a free-for-all. And again, all babies are different, but I would suggest within a couple of hours of being awake, that, what is your little one called? Sorry, Alyssa, I didn't.
It's called Atticus.
Oh gosh, that's gorgeous. That's from the To Kill a Mockingbird, isn't it? Yeah, I love that name. Yeah. So when Atticus wakes up, I would look to him again. So we were talking about those zones of dysregulation at around 2-ish hours. There's always an ish. Have a look at Atticus. What does he do? What is he starting to show you? Is there anything you can spot in him of signs of tiredness? And they'll probably be quite early signs, because he's not going to have that long to kind of build that up, okay? And because he's only built up a small amount of sleep pressure, you can get away with quite a small nap, all right? And that's ideal. What can happen otherwise is we leave them too long, they build up loads of sleep pressure, they then have a really long nap, but then you struggle to get all the other naps in the other part of the day before bedtime, and then they end up overtired, or it all goes a bit to pot, okay? So I would look around 2-ish hours, see what he's showing you, which would be great because it will give you a chance to really start to watch what's happening. Get him off for sleep at that point. And then I'd probably look at an early-ish lunch and having his longest nap if you can in the middle of the day. And then at his age, I would suggest he needs another one later in the day as well, okay? And again, that'll be probably quite a short one. So the longest one is in the middle of the day. The first nap that you tend to lose is the late afternoon one, okay, before bedtime. And like I say, that doesn't want to be a very long one. It just wants to be enough to knock off enough sleep pressure you can get through to bedtime. So like I said, roughly 3. It sounds a bit vague, and obviously, you know, when I'm working more closely with clients, we sort of look at it with timings, but really it's a case of saying, right, a short one in the morning, a couple of hours after he's woken up, nice chunky one in the middle of the day, and then a short one somewhere in late afternoon, okay?
There are times that you can allow a nap to be without it kind of destroying, because like sometimes he's never slept for more than 3 hours without waking up, so sometimes when I'm at my tiredest, I do just kind of, if he's napping and I can kind of dream feed him a bit to let him nap a little longer, I'm probably quite guilty of that. And sometimes, like yesterday, he slept for 2.5 hours late afternoon, and I was exhausted, so I kind of just let him go on with it. But I'm just worried that maybe there is a limit to how long I should be letting him nap for.
Okay, so at his age, I would expect him to have somewhere between kind of 3 to 4 hours of daytime sleep, and that's going to differ on different days as well, okay, depending on how busy he's been or whatever and what else you've got going on. So that's overall, okay? Now, firstly, I don't think you're guilty of anything. I just think you're a tired mum and you're surviving, yeah? And what I would say is if you have a day like that, which we all do, you think, oh, sod it, just nap as long as you like because I really need a nap, you're just going to have a later bedtime, okay? And that's fine. If you are looking to change things up a bit, then I would probably say that, like, you know, after that first nap in the morning, cap that to about 40 minutes, wake him from it. And then that nap, when you're tired, Alyssa, is a great one to do in the middle of the day. Like I say, get his lunch in, whatever, and then you start to spot those sleepy signs. That's when I would say try and get a sleep in. It's also going to be helpful for you because if you nap late into the day for 2-3 hours, you might find that disturbs your night, and therefore you're just exacerbating your own tiredness as well. Now, that's not to say as a one-off it's fine, but I just think it's like a general pattern. So I would definitely get back into bed with him, 100%. I do that at every possible opportunity I can. And is he your only child as well at the moment?
I've got 2.
You've got
I've got
two.
I've got a 7-year-old as well, so
Oh,
that's
okay,
quite handy with the school.
Yeah, so the middle of the day one is going to be really good for you, isn't it? Rather than needing it later on when you've then got to do the school run. So if you can get into bed with him, you know, let's say for example it's between like 12:30 and 2:30, and get that nap with him to help you, you know, in the meantime, then that's going to be great. And then you might find then when you've done the school run, you come back from the school run, he may then have a nice short nap, which might be time that you get to spend with your other child, you know, if it's sort of up to, I would say again, up to 40-ish minutes, something like that. You don't want it too long, because then it will move you into bedtime, because that's a great age, like I said, at 7 months, to start thinking a bit more about your kind of routine as such, but you know, with always some flexibility. How does that sound?
That's great, thank you.
You're welcome. Like I said, I would love to just wave a magic wand for everybody, but yeah, can you imagine? Okay, is Amy here? Sorry if I've said that wrong. No, I don't think she is, but she's talking about how to tie together sleep cycles. So that's going to be, again, thinking about how does your little one fall asleep, and is the things that you can do to help you know, help move that together. So things like let's say your little one's gone off for a nap and they've woken up 30 minutes into the nap, but you really know they need a bit longer. It's absolutely fine to go and maybe lay next to them and shush them, or give them the breast to get them over and tie them into another sleep cycle, and just get them used to that happening at that particular time of day. That's when they're going to have this longer nap. Okay, with younger babies, these sort of 30-40 minute cat naps, totally normal. Okay, really normal. I've seen some really awful sleep programs where it's like, you know, babies have got to be in their room napping in their cot for like 2 hours in the middle of the day when they're like 4 months old. I mean, good luck. It's, you know, it's a lot of work, and their sleep needs change so often that you could do that, and then any of you there with older babies are going to know how quickly that, you know, everything changes up again. So yeah, very, very normal to do that. And I think that Alyssa has given you a great example though of how to get the extra sleep in yourself, and that is to sleep with your babies during the day and get some rest. Hannah Garrett, I think Hannah is here, isn't she? Oh, she is. Oh, so Hannah's just said she needs to get an overtired baby to sleep, definitely in the yellow zone. Thank you for the advice. Okay, so yeah, what I wanted to mention here, because Hannah's, I did see this one, I did want to bring this up. So baby is breastfed back to sleep because it doesn't settle otherwise, and the health visitor told Hannah that wasn't a good thing to do. Okay, how many of us have heard that it's the wrong thing to do, or you know, it's not the right thing to do? You know, that always really saddens me, because also how amazing that Hannah has still got a baby that's breastfed at 7 months old, and that's what she should be congratulated on. Okay, because only 1% of babies in the UK are still breastfed at 6 months old. All right, so firstly, she should have been congratulated for what a fantastic job she's done. However, so should I stop doing this? No. If so, by when? Don't ever have to. Okay, if you want to stop doing it because it's bothering you, because it's affecting you in some way, or is creating issues for you, that's different. Should you have to do it? Absolutely not. Okay, it's a very, very normal way to settle your baby to sleep. We make changes when things are no longer sustainable, if it gets to that point. No worries, Emma, lovely to have you here. So yeah, so that's what I would suggest doing. Baby napping in 45-minute bursts 3 times a day, is that normal? Yes, it is, but hopefully when Hannah reads this back, we've just talked about it was Alyssa, wasn't it, with your 7-month-old, that hopefully, you know, thinking about when those sleeps are happening in the day might change that up for you for a bit. So like I said, a shorter one in the morning, not that long after waking up, so a couple of hours, which then can build the sleep pressure enough to have a nice big chunky one in the middle of the day, and then a shorter one at night is what I would suggest. Another baby that's 7 months old. In terms of, like I said, breastfeeding back to sleep, totally normal. I do think it can be really helpful to have additional sleep cues, because I do find that makes a big difference for people longer term. And when they start doing that early on, they tend to be the parents that I don't then see, you know, further down the line, because by, you know, for example, 18 months old, if a mum's still coming to me and the baby's waking hourly at that stage, you can imagine that's, you know, they're on their knees by then. But by adding in additional sleep cues early on, they never get to that point, all right, because the baby has got so well developed. The mum is really in tune with her baby as well, and that's why it's really keen to look at these zones of regulation. You will find a lot of stuff out there which will very happily sell you for a lot of money a sleep thing that tells you when your baby should sleep, when they should eat, and that kind of stuff. Sorry, I'm going off on tangent a bit here, but anything that tells you that you should feed your baby milk around sleep times, as in like they should be regulated at certain times, it's a load of rubbish. Okay, we look at when they're having their solid foods, that helps set circadian rhythm, but a baby should be breastfed and bottle fed on demand, basically, or what we call responsively. Okay, so you just continue with that regardless around sleep. So any sleep course or something that you read that says otherwise, look for the qualification. They're very likely not terribly well qualified if they're offering that information and it's not true. So totally normal to breastfeed your baby to sleep. Why wouldn't you do it? It's a very, very quick way to do it. But yes, adding in additional sleep cues can help. And what I would say is that health visitor needs some more training. But there we go. That's my personal opinion. Okay, Christina, is Christina here? I don't think I haven't seen Christina. Frequent wake ups for feeds, breastfeeding. Okay, so there's not too much information there. So I'll just see if we can make sure we've got everybody else. Eleanor isn't it? Eleanor's not here, is she? Becky, you're here, aren't you? Becky, 25 weeks. Short naps, rarely longer than 30 minutes. Wakes up every hour or two after midnight every night. How do I extend these sleep times? Okay, Becky, hopefully what we've discussed so far has given you some ideas around what's happening at the moment anyway. Yeah. So short naps, like I said, can be really common. Has your little one started weaning now? I don't know.
She's really not taken to the idea of solids at all at the moment.
Yeah, it's really early days. Yeah. So try not to worry too much about that. What's your little one called? So
Maisie.
Maisie, sweet. So what I would suggest you do is just have Maisie with you when you're eating, at the table with you. A lot of mums do like to do kind of a bit of both. They like to finger feed and do some purees, or just one or the other, whatever. But we tend to say, to be quite honest now, whatever works for you and your family and gives you the most confidence as a parent when it comes to weaning, so whatever feels right for you. If she's not that bothered, I would suggest make it like a sensory time and just an enjoyable time. Eating should be social. It should be a nice time to connect, so just have her at the table with you, and if she decides to grab a bit of toast and suck on it, then excellent.
It's literally the one thing that has happened so far.
Okay, so she might be that kind of baby that just wants to look and just take it all in, and now it's being offered, and then when she feels a bit more confident, she might grab a handful and shove it in. Okay, so I would just kind of let her go with that at the moment. So you're probably going to find as she gets a bit more into that you're going to then be able to have a bit more of a pattern to naps. Do you have any pattern at all at the moment, or do you just find it's a bit all over the place?
Well, there is sort of a pattern to when I don't let her go more than about 2 hours between naps. But I mean, once in a blue moon will she sleep more than 30 minutes. And actually the last 2 days it's dropped down to 15 minutes for each nap. Okay. And I do sort of sleep with her or lay down with her. And I don't mind doing that at all. And it doesn't seem to help.
No, so how much sleep is she getting in the day overall then, would you think?
Her average is 2 hours.
What, altogether?
Yeah.
Okay.
Over 3 or 4 naps.
Okay. Yeah, so I'd probably suggest that she's probably a little bit overtired, and that is exacerbating the situation, because when we get tired, and you don't worry, you don't need to like panic or anything, it sounds like she's doing fine, it just can then impact on sleep, because what happens is they build up cortisol and adrenaline, and that kind of keeps them going, and actually we kind of need to wind them down a bit. So it might be that you catch a bit early on. So looking again, we said about those zones of regulation, and really I'm very much a believer, just get the naps happening by any means necessary. Okay, so no like worrying about she needs to nap on her own or whatever. You just want them happening, because if not, what happens is we're trying to deal with an overtired child and making changes at the same time, and it's just too much. You're better off getting a bit more of a kind of the naps happening, managing any kind of sleep deficit and overtiredness, and then working, if you want to, on more independent sleep from there. Okay, rather than kind of tackling it all at once. So I mean, would she sleep in a pushchair at all or anything like that?
She sleeps in a sling. At the village we live in isn't pushchair friendly, so if we go out for walks it's always in a sling, which is fine. But I don't have the energy to do the walk more than once a day, really.
No, I understand totally. So could you get her in the sling during the day on you and then sit down with her in the sling? Would she?
Oh, no, she'd wake up.
She'd wake up. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's where I think for her, adding in additional sleep cues is going to be helpful for you, because then you might be able to walk around the house, get her off in the sling with some shushing, some patting. Again, like pop something in between you both. You might even want to pop a scent on as well for you. Something that isn't too overwhelming for her and that you both like is ideal. And then And I get what you mean, right? Because you get to this point, don't you? And you're having to do this all the time. And then you're like, I can't do this all day, right? When you're getting those additional sleep cues built in, so the shushing, the patting, whatever, as they're getting more built up, you're in a position then maybe the first thing you start to do, once you spend some time building these up and getting these naps just happening, is just to continue all those other sleep cues, but just gently stop the movement, okay? And that would be your first step. Now, if she immediately goes, oh, I don't like that, that's fine. You just toggle back. And then as she gently falls asleep, just as she's going off, you stop that movement again, okay? Until you get to a place where she tolerates that quite nicely. The next step from that would be is that, you might start with it in the sling, and then before or just as before she gets to that proper point of falling asleep, that's when you stop the movement. So you bring it that little bit further forward. Do you get what I mean? Mm-hmm. And these steps might take a couple of days each time. And that's where if you're making changes, it is about having to be consistent and being in the right place to do it. Then the next step might be you actually get to a point where you can shush, you can tuck her in. You might not even need the sling wrapped around you. You could put the sling on you like that, but not actually have to have her in it. Yeah. You might just, do you have what sort of sling do you have?
I've got clip-on one and a fabric one, so it sort of alternates.
Super. So the fabric one, for example, you could just pop over you and her. I'm thinking like if you're doing this inside, for example, not waiting to go out for a walk each time. It's fine to keep doing the walking ones, but just so you've got some,
in another way.
So yes, you might be able to just literally just pull it round you and hold her in it. And stop with the movement. And then the next step might be that you give her a little bit of a shush, lovely, kind of whatever it is that you're doing to add that in, and then you sit down. Okay. And again, she might initially go, whoa, I don't like that. That's not what we do, Mum. And in which case, it's fine. We come back up and we settle, we get you calm, and then we go again. So we talked earlier, and I think it was Corinne was saying, wasn't she, how she'd been really consistent with something, and initially it was harder work because you're changing stuff up. But actually, that you can get to a point where maybe what you do, and maybe what becomes one of your sleep cues, which I always think is actually lovely because the fabric wraps tend to be absolutely beautiful, is that you pop that over her and you snuggle her in on the sofa and you give her a little pat and a shush, or maybe you stroke her head, maybe feed her first, whatever. And actually, you can then contact nap with her there rather than have to keep walking all the time. And that if she, in between those sleep cycles, if she starts to stir, you can then go back to do you see what I mean? You can then do the whatever it is again, with a view to maybe eventually you can do a bit of this and whatever, and then you lay her down with that. Okay, so it's all about those gentle steps. I mean, we all want to get to the point of just like, just go to sleep, but actually, it is about building up on that and building it over time. And I think it sounds like it's just she's got a strong sleep association. I'm in a sling, I'm being held tightly, close to Mum, and I'm moving. And that's fine. That's just how she built it up. So now is a time to really build on that. Add in the other stuff first rather than take it away, because that's going to make things hard. Add it on first. When they're more associated, you can then work at moving the one you don't want so much. Or it's fine to use it sometimes, of course it is, but you don't want to be solely dependent on it, maybe. Okay. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think that might help a bit. And then, maybe just having a little look at those nap times. It might even be that early morning one. You get that in a little bit sooner. It's often the easiest one to get. And just catching those naps maybe a little bit early. Obviously, I don't know about us, discussing loads and loads, but just seeing if you need to catch her a little bit earlier on. Okay.
Yeah.
And like I say, look to her, look to what she's showing you. And like I say, Maisie, she'll have her own little sleep cues, and they might be something really subtle, and you can catch her at that point. It makes it easier. Okay. I hope this is all okay for everybody, making some sense to everybody. And you're not all sitting there going, a load of rubbish.
No, it's good.
Okay, Alana, I'm sorry if I've said that wrong, but I think she had to go actually. And that was about co-sleeping safely. And we did discuss that actually. Little baby's only 6 weeks old, so we discussed co-sleeping safely. So hopefully if you go to actual recording, you'll see that. And how much should babies be sleeping as they grow? Again, it's going to be helpful for you to look to your baby. 6 weeks old babies, I see so many mums who suddenly think that feeding's become a massive issue, but actually the babies are absolutely shattered and they're not going off to sleep. And when they're first tiny, they tend to just donk off, don't they? And we all miss that lovely newborn stage, don't we? But they might need a little bit more support with that now. So hopefully that'll be helpful to think about, like I said, those zones that we've already discussed. And then I think we've got two more here. Eleanor, 4 months. Is Eleanor here? She's not, is she? No. Jane, I don't know if I've got one for you. I don't know, like Christina's not here, is she? So I think I've spoken to, have I? No, Bex. I haven't spoken to Bex. I haven't spoken to Jane. Did you have any particular questions that you wanted to ask? I don't think I've got anything on the sleep questionnaire. Sorry if I've missed it though.
No, I didn't fill out the sleep questionnaire. I'm just doing it now. Will that be too late, or will it work for the next session?
No, you can ask now. To be honest, most people just put like a sentence in of what their main concern
Yeah, this isn't a sentence. This isn't a sentence. That's a problem. I've got 15-month-old twins, so there's several.
Oh, okay. No, we just yeah. We need like.
Is it okay if I fill the form in for next time?
Absolutely, that's absolutely fine.
Okay.
I think it's only a couple of weeks till we meet again, Jane. So that's absolutely fine.
All right, brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, Jane needs like her own questionnaire for twins. Bex, did you have anything in particular? Because I don't think I've got. Just so we don't miss anything, if there was a particular question.
No, I didn't fill in the questionnaire, and I think I've learned quite a lot already.
Okay.
I think we're going wrong in quite a lot of ways with my little girl, but overall, I'm sure it's not that bad.
How old is your little one, Bex?
She is 11 and a half months.
Okay.
But I think that we're like that thing about the zones was really helpful. I don't know whether you could say any more about spotting the bit like before she's overtired, because I think I'm actually only picking up the cues when she's starting to rub her eyes and like pull her ears. And I think we probably just need to work on a more kind of disciplined routine from the parents' perspective of kind of, you know, getting things in order. But at the moment, she's generally napping like half an hour or so, like within about 2 hours after she's waken up.
Yeah.
And then she has a really long nap in the afternoon, and then sometimes another nap before bed if like we haven't got things in order and she gets overtired and we haven't fed her. So I think like, but yeah, it'd be good to hear more about the zones. If anything, I think that'd be helpful. So, and what to do when they get overtired, because she basically gets overtired and like rampages around the bedroom and just kicks off if I try to get her to lay down. And so I kind of like let her come to me, and then when she's like ready, she'll feed and go to sleep. But I'm wondering whether actually I'm getting that wrong. And doing her a disservice, if you know what I mean. I should be catching her a hell of a lot earlier. But yeah.
Well, I don't believe any parents do anything wrong, obviously, unless it's like, you know, clearly, you know, but you know, generally parents don't do things wrong. It's just, you know, just you're doing what works for you. Now, every child is different, okay? They are so different. So at 11 months, I would be suggesting she's going to need kind of roughly 2 to 3 hours of daytime sleep. Which sounds like maybe she's kind of getting that overall, but it's thinking about the timing of it. So again, I think you're doing the right job giving her that earlier nap in the day and then a chunky one in the middle of her day. It might be, you said that's kind of into the afternoon, that midday nap might need to just come a little bit further forward. I'm guessing Bex is there and she's just moved her phone. Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. I just thought, oh God, she has to like run off.
Yeah, no, I just didn't want to hold it the whole time.
No, you're fine. Put it down how you did. I just wanted to make sure you were there.
Yeah. So we don't go to bed till really late. So we get up really late and go to bed really late. So actually that afternoon nap is probably not that late in the day for us.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. And that's the thing, you know, you've got to think it works different for different families, but it would in different cultures as well. You know, in different cultures, everyone would have a siesta and you'd all be up when the kids are all up late into the evening. So it is about just making it work for you and your family. So it depends, like but it is about managing, like say, that overtiredness as well. So yeah, if that afternoon nap works for you, that's fine. But then you're looking into a later bedtime. Okay. But I would probably knock off that end nap unless you want her to have a very late bedtime. That said, my third child was a 10 o'clock bed kid. That's just what she liked. You know, we watched quite a lot of Love Island together, I won't lie. And don't judge me. I don't judge any of you. So, you know, they all differ. Whereas like my little one, she's like a 7 o'clock, I am done for the day child. They're all so different. So in terms of spotting that regulation, I think it is going to be a case of looking to her, okay? Because I can't say to you, this is what, is it Aniela? Is that how you say it? But oh, hello. Oh, she's gorgeous, all that hair. Bless her. I make hairy babies, so they are the ones that make me go a bit. it's going to be looking to her as to kind of when, you know, as to what she does, because I can't tell you exactly what she's going to do, and that's going to help you. We are looking at kind of awake windows, usually at that age, somewhere between kind of 3 to 4 hours. Hi. She's waking away. Okay, so I would say with a baby of her age, have you heard of the 2, 3, 4 thing when it comes to naps? No? So this will be quite helpful, okay? Now this again isn't going to be the right thing for all children, but a lot of children, when they get into this stage of needing 2 naps, she's very excited about being here, is the 2, 3, 4 can really helpful. So basically from the first nap in the morning, you go for a 2-hour window, roughly. From when they wake up from that, you go for a 3-hour window before their next nap. When they wake up from that one, roughly a 4-hour window then before bedtime, okay? Now, it's not going to be exact, and that's where the zones are going to help you too, okay? So if you know roughly you're looking at like 2, 3, 4 for her, then if you're getting to that 3.5-hour mark or 3-hour mark, and at bedtime, and you start thinking, actually, yeah, that's new, or I've not really spotted that before, or oh, she's started to rub her eyes, or a yawn is coming, or she's gone a bit kind of, you know, vague or whatever, then you might start to spot those signs earlier. So again, it's not about having an exact science to the timing. It's going to be that mixed in with using your instinct and you knowing her best as her mum to spot when that works for her. And it might be slightly different every day as well. That's the thing, because it's going to be, you know, it sounds like your naps are pretty good though. And it sounds like you know within this what it is you're doing. And then it's going to be what helps her kind of, if she has gone too far, it doesn't sound like you're doing a disservice, it sounds like you're doing the right thing. You're saying, do you know what, she just needs like a crazy few minutes to kind of do her thing, probably because she's got herself a bit hyped up, and you're sitting back, letting that happen and letting her come to you and then settling her down. And that's fine. But if you want to be a bit more proactive, it might be that you look at that kind of 4-hour mark up to bedtime and start seeing what you can spot then. And then you will find that, you know, you probably will have a regular bedtime somewhere within kind of a half-an-hour window, but you're going to know each day when you are ready for that. And sometimes, I mean, I have put my children to bed in horrific states before, because everybody always wants to do bathing and all that kind of stuff, don't they? Sometimes there's just not time for that. And they have had it and they just need to go to bed. So don't be too, like, you know, some days are going to be like that. It's not going to be all kind of how you expect it to be.
Yeah, that's what I do. I bath her, because she sleeps in the bed next to me, and I don't want her sleeping in the bed covered in, I don't know, tomato sauce.
I know, that's really tough, isn't it? Okay, so I would suggest if she baths every night as well, and it might even be that she's overtired by the time she's even getting in the bath, or that, you know, she's getting tired at that point, see if you can maybe move everything half an hour forward the other way. Yeah. Okay, so that you kind of do that quite quickly. There are other things that you can do winding down to that, but initially, you know, with the time we've got here, I would say move everything half an hour forward, get her in the bath early. Some nights, if she's had it, try and just, you know, just wet wipe it the best you can. and sack her off, okay, because it might be, and especially if she enjoys her bath, it's a bit like putting on a fairground ride before they go to bed, you know. So
yeah, totally.
Yeah. Hannah, did I speak to you? I don't know if I did. I don't think I did I? Sorry.
I had to go and put Benji down, but so I think I might have missed the question that I had, which was about breastfeeding at night and naps, I think.
Let me just pull it up. Hannah, was it?
Yeah, Shan, you did answer. Yeah, that was one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I definitely discussed your health is to Hannah.
Oh, sorry, I went at the...
No, you're fine. You're fine. I'm just going to pull your thing up. Yeah, it's a little one, 7 months. Oh, that's right. Because I was saying a lot of what we discussed is hopefully going to make sense, because there was, Corinne, was yours 7 months? I'm sorry if I'm getting this wrong. Someone else had a baby at 7 months and we were discussing it. So some of that's quite, hopefully a lot of what we've discussed anyway, Hannah, is going to make a lot of sense. Yeah. And that is in there, and I think it is being recorded, so you can go back over it. But what things I wanted to say to you was that 7 months still breastfeeding your little one is incredible, and you should be so proud of yourself. And I'm sorry that you've been told that your current situation is not good. I don't think there's anything not good about it. I think what you are currently doing is normal, fine, absolutely fine. However, if it's not working for you, it's also fine to change things up, okay? And I discussed with Becky about moving on from the sling naps, and it's quite similar in terms of the breastfeeding, for example. If you want to move on from breastfeeding, or you don't want to be so reliant on it, it's just about adding in additional sleep cues. And often, I can't tell you enough, when people get the naps kind of a little bit more structured, as we've discussed about, you know, where you'd fit them in the day. With a baby of 7 months, I'd expect 3 naps a day still, short one in the morning, chunky one in the middle of the day, and like a shorter one later on. Then yeah, that together with kind of a nice chilled bedtime, doesn't have to be too long or over drawn out, and then adding additional sleep cues. I can't tell you how many times, if people do that for a good couple of weeks, that we start to see changes happen. Okay, in terms of, is it good though or not? Should you stop doing it? And if so, by when? No. Okay, should you stop doing it? No, absolutely not. It's fine. If so, by when? You don't ever have to stop doing it. Your child, you know, at some point will be like my 12-year-old and won't want you near them. You know, they're not going to do this forever. And then you're the one asking for cuddles. So, you know, you don't need to stop it. It's like I said, it's where you're at. So, yeah, it's a very, very normal way to get your baby back to sleep. But to change it up, I would add in those other things and just kind of work with that initially. And then, like I said, if you go back over the recording, we talked a bit about how you kind of can move on from that very gently. But I would say, regardless, and we're meeting again in 2 weeks anyway, I would suggest that you all start thinking about that. Maybe make a note of, and you know, a bit of homework almost, which is what I kind of do like with my sleep clients with sleep coaching, is that to go away and see if you can just spot those zones of your little one. What do they show you? How do you know they're good to go? How do you know that they're in a really good blue zone? So they are ready and they're going to fall asleep really nicely. What happens on those nights, you know, when you just get it just right? How do you know they're in the yellow zone and you've just maybe missed it a bit? And how do you know they're in the red zone? Usually just because they're going a bit nuts. But also, what for your baby helps bring them back? Okay, so what helps your baby settle into the blue zone ready for a nice sleep? Is it rocking for your baby? Is it stroking? Is it singing? Is it feeding? They'll all be different. And also, what is it that helps them get back into their green zone if, you know, they've just got dysregulated because they're bored? Do they want to go outside? Is it a particular toy that they like? Do they just need to cuddle? Do they need to come in for a feed? That kind of stuff. And then I would also suggest that everybody, maybe as you go away, thinks about, maybe let's start with 3. We don't want to go crazy. 3 other sleep associations that you can start to build up in addition to what you're already doing. So whatever that is, whether you're rocking, slinging, feeding, whatever it is, think about 3 things in addition that you can start doing consistently for your little one, that you can bring in that works for you. And again, you know, I can't tell you what that's going to be because every baby's going to be different. So I hope that gives you some stuff to kind of work on over the next couple of weeks. And then when we meet again, we can maybe chat about that, and you can, and anyone who's then not been in the session, hopefully it'll, you know, just build on that really for them as well, and they'll kind of be able to catch up to where we're at. How does that sound? Yeah, good. Okay. I hope that was all right. Everybody's like on mute now, so no one's talking. If you want to come off mute, but I don't know how you normally close the session, Robin.
Yeah, just like this. Just say bye and everyone leaves.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Lovely to meet you all, and look forward to seeing you all again soon.
That was awesome. Thank you so much, Sean.
You're welcome. Do you want me to hang on, Robin?
Yeah, you can do.
Yeah,
go for it.
I'll let everybody else go, and then I'll just hang on and just speak to Robin quickly. But lovely.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
See you later, guys.